This is the Expeditions Podcast. I'm Tim Harden. In this episode, we'll be chatting with Gabe Free, a fitness expert and someone who trains mountain athletes. We're going to be talking about ways to stay active and get in shape, maintain good health, so that photographers can stay active in the field and be productive in the field. Let's chat with Gabe. Okay, we're here with Gabe Free of PT Revolution in Truckee, California. Welcome to the Expeditions Podcast.
Hey, Tim. Thank you so much for having me on. This is my first podcast, but I'm gonna give it a go here.
This is great, and this is technically our first episode after the introduction, and I thought it was appropriate that we start with you rather than a photographer, because I think, in my opinion, at the age of 44, and I had a hip replacement at 35, and after obviously having physical issues, and then someone who's looking at having a healthy, long career of wildlife and adventure travel photography, like the number one thing that should be on my list is not camera knowledge or details about where to find animals or something like that. It should be about how to take care of the most important piece of gear, which is the body.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right on that one. And I don't know, probably sounds a little corny, but yeah, the most important gear on, any trip is obviously, your toe, head to your toe there. It's your old body. And, I can tell you from a lot of personal experience that most people wait till it's too late. They wait till they get hurt, or, they go on a trip and something kind of goes wrong, or they can't make the summit that they're supposed to, XYZ, that then they end up seeking out counsel. So a lot of people do wait till it's kind of a problem before addressing it. So it is, I like the philosophy there. First episode, get in touch with, the most important thing, which is yourself. So yeah, I like that a lot.
And it's crazy too, in photography, gear is so expensive, and people spend an incredible amount of money for a lens that realistically just gets them like 20 steps closer to their subject, or something like that. And so, there's something to be said for actually being able to move around, getting to where you need to be to get the shot. One thing I don't know if I mentioned to you before is, like, we'll get to it, but your body is ultimately more important than the gear at a certain point during a trip. In my case, especially towards the end, when you're exhausted, when you might be a little bloated and needing stamina and stuff like that. So I'm excited to dive into a range of these topics.
Definitely. Yeah. And, yeah, it's, people focus on, getting lighter gear, better backpacks, ergonomic, all that good stuff. But ultimately, you got to control the number one thing, which is, your horsepower under the engine there, which is your own fitness. So lifelong pursuit, no matter what you're doing, but, especially if you're really an outdoors enthusiast, cannot overstate, the importance of it.
There's a video, maybe it's in the film Meru, I can't remember, where Jimmy Chin, the adventure travel photographer, is talking about like cutting the tags off of clothes and stuff just to save that much little weight.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, strength can go a long way too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The details do matter, especially, if you really got to climb to get to your target. I mean, that's obviously huge, but, from everything to the food you're packing, water, all that stuff, all that weight's got to be accounted for, and is something that you can manage in your, build up to a trip, and really just every day you can make strides to get a little bit better at weight management. And I'm not talking about, well, a little bit, I'm talking about your own personal body weight, but also just literally the ability to manage weight on your body, holding the camera, strong shoulders, core, legs, hips, the whole thing. It all matters.
I'm excited to get into all this, but before we get into a lot of the details, let's learn a little bit more about you. What's your background and how did you get into being an expert on fitness matters?
Yeah, so great question. Let's see, how far back do we go here? So I went to Penn State where I was a kinesiology major. I knew I wanted to get into strength conditioning at kind of the team level. Sorry if you're hearing a dog barking
No,
outside.
it's
It's actually
awesome.
okay, yeah. I'm living it right now. But anyway, yeah. So I went to Penn State. Knew I wanted to be in strength and conditioning, and at first I was in collegiate strength and conditioning, so more kind of team sports, field sports. From everything from football to golf. We actually did have a fly fishing club, but we didn't get to work with them, unfortunately. But anyway, started there. I ended up wanting to kind of get into the private training environment. And ultimately, a big passion of mine has always been skiing. And by always, it basically means since the first time I was able to do that,
Who took you?
which my father did. We went out to Vail, Colorado. So, first ski trip ever was in Vail, which
Was,
is not a bad place to be.
was there anyone like cool there?
Yeah, this guy I know did arrange the whole thing. I think he went to a university nearby, went by the name of Tim Harden.
Yes. Cool.
Epic snowboarder at the time and soon to be podcast host and photographer.
Yeah.
Um,
We're brothers for those who are wondering what's going on right now.
you just gave away the punchline there,
Oh,
but yes, that is true. But yeah, that's right. So my brother was out there. I believe a cousin was involved as well. But yeah, so went out to Vail, had a great time, and basically from age like 10 to 24, I was trying to figure out how to ski as much as possible, but I had my own sports and stuff going on and wasn't really able to pursue it at the time. But um, kind of mid 20s, while I was working as a trainer, I decided to make my way out west. And after a couple stints in the Bay and different parts of Lake Tahoe, I now find myself in Truckee, where I'm working with all kinds of professional skiers, snowboarders, distance runners, climbers, mountain bikers. I mean, you name it. Really, mountain sports is kind of my niche now as far as kind of the training realm goes. So, kind of went away from the team strength conditioning realm and now find myself working with individual mountain athletes and have been here for about 6 years doing that. So, it's been great. And yeah, I've just got to work with so many cool athletes that are, doing stuff all over the world, with huge followings and jamming YouTube channels and the whole thing. So, yeah, at the physical therapy clinic, we really kind of take athletes to really wherever they're at, if they're coming in injured or if they're just coming in for performance. But ideally, we're kind of meeting them wherever they are on that spectrum. Being injured doesn't mean you can't train, obviously, depending on the severity. But, really our philosophy is, working around that. And that, rehab is just kind of training in the presence of an injury. Doesn't mean you can't train. And it's just such an important thing for these athletes. Obviously, their body really is their resume, their career, all that stuff. So they have to be in tip top shape to do the mountain biking that they need to, being able to, throw double backflips and know that if they, beef the landing a little bit, they're going to be able to walk away from that, all that stuff. And, including just the ability to, get people through trips. We work with a lot of people of all different ages who are, just looking to, hey, I'm going backpacking in the Dolomites or something, and they need, get ready for that. So, whether you're looking to hit a double backflip or, just basically feel great on a vacation, we're there for you, and that's kind of where we're at. So that's the kind of athletes that we're working with, and that's yeah, I know, long answer, but that's how I kind of made it from team strength and conditioning to individual mountain athletes out here in the West. But I love it. Yeah, and I've just gotten to meet so many cool different people doing a lot of different stuff all over the world, but mostly find themselves based here in Truckee.
yeah. And I think that background was really important because it's, is like, photography is not, it's not an impact sport, but, I saw, I didn't read the full caption, but I saw a picture posted of Paul Nicklin recently, the photographer, and I mean, he's in his 50s and he's posted something from a hospital room. I guess he was having surgery or something. There are photography injuries. A lot of it is because there's a wide range of ages participating. My photography mentor, Brian Gregson, he was a professional snowboarder. And, when his time ran out there, photography became a passion for him. It's another way to, stay in the mountains and be involved in the ski snowboard life. Another guy, Sean, a friend of mine, Sean, same thing, was big into like the snow sports, but became a filmmaker when his snow sports time was up. So, but regardless, less impact sports like hiking are physically demanding and often require management of some kind, I'm sure. Um, in my office, I have a lot of photos framed or prints framed of things that inspire me. And one of them is a photo that I grew to love from Jimmy Chin of Conrad Anker climbing in Antarctica in 2017.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons I didn't like it at first was you can see it looks like, well, there is a rope, so someone did climb ahead of Conrad Anker, but um, he there's a trail of footprints leading to Conrad Anker because of the person who went up first. But I grew to like the photo despite the footsteps that I wish weren't there, but have to be, because I realized that those footsteps are probably at least one pair of the footsteps are Jimmy Chin's, which meant in Antarctica at the summit of this mountain, he had to endure those extra steps to be able to take that photo. And so it reminds me, I always want to be able to take those extra steps. And when I did an interview with my mentor, Brian, years ago, I asked him about like why he was growing food and stuff like that. And he said, a lot of times that shot comes down to the extra steps. And in my experience, I've had that when it's like, man, do I want to walk over there? And then you do, and it's a game changer, or you just like get a little lower or dig a little spot in the snow, like the littlest things. But when you're at altitude or you're exhausted or whatever, you kind of like don't want to do sometimes, or you're achy or tired. It's the end of the trip. I remember being in Belize once and carrying a little bit more body fat than I wanted to, and getting the better shots during one part of the day meant like getting your camera really, really low to the water, or laying on your stomach on the boat or in like a squatted position where your belly's in the way. And it actually makes a difference. And so, just like someone would spend $3,000 on a lens that gets you 10 steps closer, imagine those 10 steps plus the lens, or, this obsession in photography gear with weight. I shoot Sony, and Sony has like crushed it with weight, where people are so focused on the slightest weight differences because it makes such a difference when you're traveling or carrying a heavy pack around. Um, you know, the starting point ought to be the body, and so let's get into several issues. um, and before that, actually, like, what was it? Skiing that took you to Truckee, California?
Yeah, it was. I just wanted to live in a place where I could ski as much as possible and not have, the any deterrent of, oh, I have to drive, 3 hours, I have to hop on a flight, whatever, I have to plan it, make it a whole thing. I just wanted to be able to, yeah, get there as soon as possible. And yeah, I was lucky enough to visit here probably 2 years before I moved here. And I just, not too special of a story, but fell in love with it, thought it was the coolest place ever, and was like, yeah, this is the one. Um, I'd always loved the mountains, but this town is just special. And I love the summer dynamic as well. You can get out in the lake, get out there and swim. And it's just a great dual season spot. Yeah, so plenty of positive endorsements for Tahoe from your boy right here. It is a great place, so come on and check it out. Anyone listening, if you haven't been.
And if you get injured,
That's right, PT
Gabe's.
Revolution. We got Truckee and South Lake, so we got north or south. We'll take care of you. Or if you just want to come in and train, use the recovery lounge. That's all good. We got whatever you need.
Was I there when you went to Truckee for the first time?
I think you were.
Sick.
Maybe. Yeah, I think we went. We did go fishing. I don't think we caught anything though.
Hey,
Um,
that
but hey,
the latter is not necessarily the
that's right. But you know what? Yeah, I was physically ready for the hiking that we did. So that's our topic.
awesome. Truckee, in my opinion, is one of those epicenters in the United States for mountain athletes. And most people think ski and snowboard, snow sports, but there's mountain biking and trail running and so many other things. Um, and so, I'm one of these people who has a history of like not addressing foundational needs and then needing massage and then, getting hurt, not injured, but like, having a pelvic tilt and then walking weird for a few days and then being in a lot of aches and pains. And I've been working pretty hard for a little over a year to change that and just have a better foundation. Um, is there something common among all people, anyone who's listening, about what that foundational work should be and things that everybody should be doing to have a long, healthy, productive, in some cases, active life in outdoor settings?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of a sort of a loaded question of it's you can't quite say like, oh, what's the one thing everyone should do? Like I think there's kind of an over obsession in this country in particular, and really I mean kind of the world, but basically training's hard. And especially in America, like everybody's out here putting in like 60-hour work weeks. Like it's just kind of the nature of the beast at this time. And it's like, oh, when do I find time? And what's the one thing, because everybody wants to be kind of efficient, because people just don't have a lot of free time to train and don't necessarily make it a priority as well. So it's about if I had to kind of boil it down to just a few basic bullet points, it would be strength training like anywhere from 2 to 4 times a week is great. Two is fine. Like I think people think, oh, I have a big trip coming up in a couple months. I need to go, just totally full tilt and do a class or something, 9 days a week. I have to be in the gym, and just absolutely try to kill themselves in the lead up to something. But that is more likely to kind of create sort of a injury kind of leading up to it. Like if you just try to go from 0 to 100 like that. And especially you talk about like January, everybody wants to get in shape after Christmas and stuff like that, so they just go crazy for January. They do some fad diet, they go vegan for a bit or keto, whatever, and just join a gym and do something new, and then they crush themselves for a month and then forget about it. But what's way better than training really hard for like 1 month out of the year is just training like at like kind of a 70% capacity forever. And then it's not that you have to go in there and think, oh, every gym session I have to kill myself. I have to really push myself on this hike so that this trip's coming up is going to feel easy or something like that. If you can just kind of make small steps consistently over time, that's going to be the best thing for your body ultimately, no matter what. So back to those bullet points again, 2 sessions a week in the gym is great. Trying to get stronger, training your legs, obviously your upper body, your core, get the whole thing in there. Push weight, pull weight, squat, hinge, just hit the basic movements. You don't have to overcomplicate it with anything too fancy, Push-ups are still the best thing out there. Nothing wrong with jumping jacks. Like, get old school with it. If you can hire a trainer or anything like that, that's amazing, but not everybody can. Obviously, that's a cost as well. But, focus on the basic movements. There's nothing wrong with 3 sets of 10, classic rep schemes, don't overthink it. And God, I mean, today, get on ChatGPT, man, and just, I know it's kind of not the best for the environment. Maybe we don't want to go that route, but you can get on ChatGPT and say, hey, I've got 3 hours to train this week. Can you give me a good strength program? And as a trainer, I'm telling you, it's not going to be the best thing ever, but it's fine. It'll get you there, and give you at least a starting point to go in there and mess around and move the needle a little bit. Again, I think most people kind of overcomplicate it, or think that they need to develop 20 hours a week to actually get somewhere, and you definitely don't. So again, like two, three, 4 strength sessions a week is great. If you can push yourself aerobically for about 2 hours total in the span of a week, so if that's like a couple jogs you're going on, or just long walks in the mountains, if you can get on an incline, if you can put on a weight vest and go for a walk, that's great too. That'll get your shoulders a little bit more accustomed to carrying a pack, which does make a difference. um, and obviously eating right. We could talk about the details of that forever, but making sure you're getting enough protein, staying hydrated, those would be the biggest boxes to check. Again, so like 2 to 3, 4 strength sessions a week, trying to get stronger, moving weight that does maybe scare you a little bit sometimes, something that actually does, like, you pick it up and you're like, oh shit, this is actually pretty heavy. That's kind of where you should be at. Also, when you're pushing yourself self aerobically, sometimes you should be able to kind of maintain a conversation, kind of getting in that consistent, sustained, like, zone 2 of your heart rate training, where you can maintain a conversation, but it's a bit of a struggle. And also to the point where, saying like 2 to 3 words is like the max, where you truly are like out of breath, hill sprints, running around the track, jogging at a bit of a brisker pace, all is going to make a huge, huge difference. But again, it doesn't have to be full tilt, kill yourself for like 2 weeks leading up to a trip. Just doing these things consistently, if you can manage even like 4 to 5 weeks out of your entire week, you can make a big, big difference for your body physiologically that will just give you resilience going up to a trip. Depending on the kind of intensity of your trip, there is a lot of logic to building up your strength and endurance before that, because when you're on these trips, especially if you're in the backcountry for several days, hiking, climbing, all that good stuff, you're going to lose muscle on that trip. You're going to like lose strength. But the point is to kind of build yourself up before that. So let's say just kind of using a number from 1 to 10, you build yourself up to like a 9. You can pretty much guarantee that after that trip, your body's going to be like a 6. Your sleep's going to be weird. You're sleeping intense. You're hiking all day. You're probably not going to be able to eat enough protein and carbs, just based on the nature of the beast of having to pack everything. It's going to like just ultimately break your body down. So the point of training all the time in your life is to build yourself up so that you're kind of at this consistent 8, 9, 10, out of 10, like, readiness. So that when you go on these trips and you expect that breakdown back to a 4, 5, 6, that you're not starting at a 6 and then breaking yourself down to a 2, 3, 4. Again, kind of using just arbitrary numbers here, but again, the point is that, on these trips, in these high intensity endurance activities, there's going to be breakdown. So the point is to always kind of be building yourself so that when you get to that breakdown, you're not completely destroyed. You're not like limping your way back to the car and immediately going from these trips to, immediately seeking a physical therapist or a masseuse, as you mentioned earlier, or Cairo, whatever. You don't need to. You're just kind of like, all right, I'll take a couple of days off and then I'm back to the gym, ready to build myself up again. You're not, crippled from these, trips that you're doing. And it's an active lifestyle, more of a, thing that you're just expecting to absolutely crush you and have you needing, counsel afterwards. So long answer there, but, all good nuggets of info.
Yeah. And now, what you named at the end there was sort of my history. And I want to give a shout out to Dr. Carrie Culver in Livingston, Montana at Mountainside Chiropractic. She's been a game changer for me. She's a chiropractor, but I would say most of the work we do is really muscle and physical therapy related. Um, Up until like April of last year, I would try to do anything and then sort of come home limping because of not using the right muscles and compensating and doing all the wrong things, not having muscles properly developed after their hip replacement and so forth. And like you lose so much photography time, so much enjoyment in the outdoors, and then you lose the ability to like maintain exercise. And that cycle of things is the worst. And it kept me out of the field a lot. Or it kept me like pretty limited in the field where the idea of hiking a little bit farther to find animals or something like that seemed like a nightmare. Or if I was traveling and sitting a lot, you know, suddenly laying in the bed in the hotel sounded more desirable than like feeling worse. So it sounds like what someone needs foundationally then is that consistency, which people would not get if they were doing what I had previously been doing. They need to start, they need to be active. And so, I was just in Maryland for 10 days or something. I don't remember how many days, 8. Anyway, that's not important. And now I'm back home and like I'm overwhelmed with like unpacking and all the stuff I have to do. And now all of a sudden I was going to work out yesterday, but now I'm about to drive to the other side of the state and then go into Idaho over the next 48 hours. I thought like maybe I'll stop at the gym on the way or like do a quick like dumbbell workout at home. But then I was like, alternatively, I could go to the gym on Tuesday. It's Saturday right now. Go on Tuesday and get a complete workout when my day is more open. You'd say, don't worry about like going hard and getting that complete, like, didn't miss, a set workout and instead just focus on like maintaining a certain level of routine with activity.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and to your point, I do think most people definitely think that way. Like I would, they think, okay, I'm in a hotel, the gym here's no good, whatever. I'm just gonna wait till I get home and then, put in 6 days a week, next week or something like that. Your body, especially, I mean, most physiology, the way it works is it's really all just governed by homeostasis, which, if we all remember like eighth grade biology or whatever, it basically just means balance. But if you kind of consistently put your body in this, muscular stressed state, i.e., training of any kind, then that's where it understands its homeostasis. Like that's where its balance is, because that's where you're consistently putting it. So and likewise, if you don't, then your body sort of shuts down those mechanisms. So, unfortunately, we can't just like think our way into fitness or to say like, oh, my body understands that being fit is good. So it's naturally just going to like do these mechanisms. And that's obviously not true. Like you have to force your body into this new state of being essentially, which is only done through really consistency. Um, there's a good, I don't know, phrase I typically say with clients who want to kind of crush themselves in a given week for any reason, but it's that today won't make you, but it can break you. The point of that being that overtraining on one session doesn't do anything to move the needle except potentially hurt you. Whereas consistent training will actually make the difference. One session, one good week, one bad week doesn't really change anything. It's about consistency over time. So, back to what you said earlier about, not having enough time, things like that. There's plenty of research to show that even just 1 to 2 sets of any exercise taken to, the point of like muscular failure, so the point where, you can't do another rep for that given set, that can actually move the needle on hypertrophy, which is muscle growth. So real life example of that, if you are short on time, if you drop down, hit as many push-ups as you can do in one set, let's say it's 10, stand up, rest for like 1 or 2 minutes, do it again. Maybe you get like 9 or 10 again. And that's like kind of the 10th rep being, either not being able to finish the rep, or, you get to the top and you're absolutely smoked. That's technically enough. I mean, there's, again, research to show that that is a good mechanism to actually stimulate some hypertrophy. Now, that changes the more in shape you are. Basically, the fitter you are, the more you have to train. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. But again, just to kind of maintain these basic levels, if the most push-ups that you can do to that point of fatigue is like 50, then do that. Do your 50 push-ups, rest, next set, whatever, get another set to failure. Again, there is a lot of research to show that that is technically moving the needle a bit. So yeah, to what you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be a 2-hour gym session every time, but consistency of, just giving your muscles something to do, something to think about, just stressing them out a little bit is going to help a lot more than nothing always. Yeah, for sure.
And I guess that gets just your muscles. I don't know anything about this, but it gets your muscles more active and used to being like awakened. I don't know. But I asked that because like one of the things I've gotten in the work that I'm doing here is like if I do these like easy as can be, like while you're making a cup of coffee, leg and glute exercises that like don't really cause any type of muscular stress that I can really feel. If I then go for a walk, I feel great after 3 miles versus if I don't do that little thing that activates those muscles, I'm like coming back limping. And so in general, like is keeping an active routine partially helpful so that you're keeping muscles from rusting? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, you're in the right ballpark for sure. I think there's sort of like, I mean, that the word like activation and like turn on my glutes and stuff. I mean, you hear this like all the time, and that's not exactly how it works. Like your muscles are always on, like there's no like off switch, but basically sometimes your body won't be using them in the greatest kind of ranges of motion, and that can lead to like weird imbalances. And what you're saying, where so you do this like total hip and glute routine and then go walking, like yeah, you've technically gotten things basically just a little fatigued, and I'm trying not to say turned on, but yeah, turned on a little bit. But you're just stimulating them, and they're getting blood flow. Your brain is communicating with those muscles better than they were before, and that all kind of makes a difference. It's obviously, that's why athletes warm up before any competition. It's not necessarily about turning the muscles on, but it is about just getting the blood flow, getting them warmer, which just basically makes them more responsive, and just more functional. You turn your engine on in a car, you let it warm up a little bit, it just gets the oil circulating, and ultimately a little less grind on the engine. And that's not too different than what happens in the human body when you warm up, or when you do I don't know, a bunch of glute exercises before you go hiking. You're really just kind of getting the prime movers a little bit more stimulation, and that's just going to give you a more efficient engine, let's say, when you go to do that activity. So yeah, so warming up's obviously important, but to your point, bodies in motion stay in motion. So doing all that good kind of prehab movements before a hike, after a hike is great. Ultimately, it's just more work for your muscles, which is most likely going to be a good thing, as long as it's something you can recover from, adequate sleep, adequate hydration, nutrition, all that good stuff. Then, you pretty much should be training what you can for whatever activity that you're looking to do, whether it's climb, walk, bike, ski, just getting your body ready for it.
Yeah, there are times where like my focus on having like a complete workout or whatever keeps me from doing anything, and so like I bet you if I settled more at the gym and on walks, um, I'd walk like another 200 miles a year and get like another 100 lifts in. But it's like, oh no, I'm not going to do half my lift. But you end up doing more when you do it anyway. So it's just better to like stay consistent and get two okay workouts in, or muscle days, than one giant one. It's like a European vehicle. You just gotta you can't let it sit.
Yeah.
Or if you do, when
Um,
you turn it on, it'll blow into 1,000 pieces.
yeah, that's 100% accurate. Yeah. That is physiology, muscle physiology summed up right there. But yeah, I mean, a friend of mine, who's does some online coaching too. She's great. But there's some January challenge thing or whatever. It's called like 75 hard.
Yeah.
And I guess you just like kill yourself for 75 days and like don't eat or something. I don't know what the hell it is, but yeah, I thought she just had a really good post about it. But she said, what's better than 75 hard is 365 average.
Good.
And basically kind of just highlighting what I said earlier, that, killing yourself for a month doesn't do anything, but being, 60-70% of your best for the entire year will absolutely destroy. And I like what you said earlier about how that gets you an extra 200 miles, it gets you an extra 100 workouts or whatever. But that's exactly right. Like, think about the entire year of it. Like, look at the whole, let's call it, like, if that's our kind of, biggest unit that we want to look at, we could of course call it your entire life, but that's a bit, of a large scope. But let's just say for the whole year, it's like, yeah, okay, so I was traveling this for 20 weeks out of the year for photography or whatever, and in that time, every time I go to a hotel, I do 300 push-ups or something. Like, that's my rule. And compare that to the person who doesn't do that stuff and it's just like, I'm going to wait till I get home, get to my gym, work out, and do the workout that I know is the best workout or whatever. And if you compare those two, again, if you zoom out, it's like, yeah, person A who kind of did the consistent light thing ends up doing 20,000 push-ups or whatever, whereas the person who waited till they got to their favorite gym did only 800 reps of bench press, because that bench press is their favorite exercise and they know it's the best or something like that. So yeah, that's absolutely the point, is just consistency and staying with it is what's going to keep you in that ready state. And that's what you need out there. It's not that you have to be killing yourself every single session or waiting for that perfect 3 hour time frame where you can get the best workout and do the sauna and do the whole thing. Like, when you have that time, that's great and you should take advantage of that. But again, way more important to manage the times that you can't get a great workout, because back to the American grind of our 60-hour work weeks and everything sucks and everything's hard. You got to just make time. If it's like literally doing 30 push-ups while you're waiting for your coffee, like, get it done. Like, that's just how it is. And you just got to make time. Nobody has time, everybody's got to make time. And understanding too that any time that you contribute matters and it does move the needle. So if it's 20 push-ups in your kitchen or a 2 hour gym session, like, you're still doing good things to move your body and you should be happy with that. And understand that that's all moves the needle towards where you want to go, or at least prevents the needle from going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, like as you said that, I thought about the travel that I had last week in Maryland and then through tomorrow in Montana. And my plan was to have over that period like 4 or 5 days, I can't remember, like really solid lifts. But I never had enough time for that because of other people's plans or things that were arranged. It would seem pathetic to go for a 1 mile walk for me. But if I had done that, then every day, which would take, I don't know, 30 or 40 minutes or something, that would have been like 11 miles. So I wish I had done that because that 11 miles is a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's exactly what I was saying. It just adds up over time. So, small things you can do every single day, like, going for a walk, if there's a meeting, you can take over the phone, like do that, and do that while you're walking. I I'm almost embarrassed to say, but I recently I find myself a little bit more desk bound these days, but I did recently get a little walking treadmill that was only like $200. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was going to be like $1,000, but it wasn't too bad. And, I can put it on an incline. I can get it up to like 3.2 miles an hour or something, which is, kind of a brisk pace. But technically, this is like just this silly little thing, but it's helping me get more steps. And when I do have to be glued to the desk for like 4 hours straight, I can at least get some steps in. Like I'm not like exactly on a brisk pace at that point, but I'm doing something. So yeah, just can't emphasize enough consistency. Really small habits over time are going to make the biggest difference for everybody. And it's not like if you were, wanted to turn on this podcast and hear like the big secret of, yeah, like this exact routine is going to be perfect, then you're going to be disappointed because that's not really a thing. But think I kind of hinted at this earlier. Like everybody wants that one perfect thing that's going to like make a difference for them, and it really doesn't exist. It's just the answer is just finding time when you can be consistent and just do something to move that needle. And whether it's push-ups or a really expensive Pilates session or whatever, just like whatever you're doing, just got to do something, and you got to stay consistent. And when you can't have your perfect workout, bust out some push-ups, find a jump rope, something cheap you can travel with, a little band, whatever, have a routine and just do it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you feel a little burn in your muscles, if you feel like you're pushing yourself to a point of fatigue, then you are moving the needle. Even if it's just doing a plank till you can't anymore, doing that like 5 times, great core workout. Don't overthink it. Like I said, get on ChatGPT, find some AI crap, but it'll be fine. It's great. Like that's all good stuff. And it's helping. So yeah, all of it is good. Everything counts.
Awesome. So, uh, as far as getting into shape, like generally speaking, in this space, a lot of people, and by the way, like one frustrating thing for all parties, including people in your line of work, where you recognize that things are pretty simple in some cases and specialized in other cases. Like, you know how it goes. Like, everyone tries to complicate things. I remember this guy I knew who lost like hundreds of pounds, and I was like, "Hey, how did you do?" Or he said that people always ask him, how did you do that?" And he's like, "Move more, eat less," which I know is not the full story, but also like that's kind of
No, it is.
yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing. That's it. Just like put the fork down
yeah.
like that. It works.
And then I dropped like 30 or 40 pounds, and people were like, "How did you do that?" And I was like, move more, eat less. There's everyone always wants a shorter, like a shortcut, and what it requires is pretty simple anyway. Even if it's just not having that extra serving or whatever. Um, but similarly, when I have asked you more than once, like, okay, wildlife photographers, adventure travel photographers need to carry like perhaps a 30-pound backpack and walk long distances all day. What should I do? You're like, put on weight and walk. And I,
Yeah.
do you have any other ideas? No, I'm just kidding. It's so obvious. Like, of course, that's what I need to do. So let's just pretend. Well, hopefully it's not pretend, but it's July 20th, and I am hoping to go to Iceland for a shoot on August 20th. And it's going to be like, hilly terrain, a little mountainous, no flat surfaces, carrying my pack all day. What should I or someone in a situation like mine be doing between now? And I know it's going to vary from person to person, but generally speaking, what do we do when we've got a trip coming up in 4 weeks?
Yeah, for sure. So you got 4 week time frame.
Yeah.
So gotcha. So, in a 4 week time frame, physiologically, that's a pretty narrow window to like change. a lot of, in terms of like strength in particular. But, we're talking about a 30-pound pack. It's not the heaviest thing in the world, but, what your body does need to get used to is that load consistently. And, certainly just kind of what I said earlier, 2 to 3 strength sessions a week is great, but ultimately not trying to kill yourself. Like, kind of recall what I just said, that in a 4-week time frame is not really a time frame to realistically get stronger, but you can get some good movements into your joints and basically kind of get them ready for just the consistency of that impact. So I mean, in a 4-week time frame, your biggest needle that you can move is going to be that aerobic fitness. And you might not like this, but it's going to be going for walks, even like light jogs. But if we're talking, like, let's say, I don't know, maybe like 8 to 12 miles a day, it's not like you have to do 8 to 12 miles a day getting ready for that. But I would say, between like 5 to 7 would be awesome. Even if you can get like a consistent 1 hour of, straight walking, if you can throw on that weight vest, that's awesome. If you can't get into the hills, that's great too. But ultimately, you just got to get your body used to the kind of endurance and distance that's going to need to be ready for in that time. And, if you can throw on the weight vest or even just throw on your photography backpack and throw plate weight in there, that'd be good. In this short time frame, I would definitely say a little overload is good. So if for the trip you're looking at, a 30-pound backpack for 10 miles a day, let's try to do like a 5-mile hike with, 60 pounds in your bag or something like that, where you're doing more weight but less distance and kind of getting a bit of overload in that regard. So that, when you are on the actual journey, it just kind of that's sort of just a mental resilience thing. But you're like, oh, this isn't heavy, this is nothing, because you're used to the 60-pound bag. Stuff like that does, something you can kind of change and build in a shorter time frame, and can make a big difference. But yeah, again, it's like, it's like if you're trying to go from 0 to, whatever speed you need to get to for this trip, then I would, my advice would be to just, take it easy, do the walking, get as much endurance in as you can. But if you are that person that, is kind of consistently training all year, and you do want to get a little bit more specificity in your training for this trip, then that's when I'm thinking the overload of that bag, where you're going, 60 pounds or 80 pounds, whatever, on the weight vest, doing, shorter distance. Maybe you're even doing like a Stairmaster, something where you're really able to get that kind of incline in. Or obviously, if you got a treadmill, you can pop it up to 15% incline. That's great too. Where there's a little more specificity to it. And that overload of the heavier bag, maybe even you're pushing the pace on those walks, going like 3.2, 3.5 miles an hour, something like that. Tempos are great, where you're doing maybe a minute at a harder pace and then 2 minutes at a slower pace, just to kind of push different just intervals, basically, for your lungs, getting used to different types of just heart rate zones that, potentially you would have to be used to on that climb. If there's any, I don't know, any pitches that are just a bit more aggressive on the incline, like, you want to make sure you're ready for that. You don't want to be like dying when you get to the top of this pitch, especially, we're talking about photography. I mean, I know everyone's got tripods and stuff like that, but you don't want your arms to be like shaking because you're so out of breath. Or, if you can't focus, or God, I mean, I don't know, if you're fogging up the lens because you're breathing on it so much, like, little things like that do kind of matter. And pushing that aerobic capacity in the lead up to, a dominantly aerobic activity is going to be a good thing. Um, Kind of principle in strength conditioning that I think is like so often overlooked, which is, it's kind of crazy because I think it's like just the most simple thing, but it's called the SAID principle. It just stands for specific adaptations to imposed demands. And it basically just means you get good at what you practice. And if you're, practicing, super heavy deadlifts, like, that's awesome. Like, that's really good for you. But is that necessarily going to make a huge difference on a, 30-mile expedition with weight on your back? Like, yeah, a little bit, but like, really, to get ready for that, you should be doing that thing, and it's kind of, it's just so overlooked. It's like, oh, I want to get stronger at biking, so excuse me, so I want to do really heavy squats, and that's correct. But at some point in the gym or just in your training, you do have to do like cycling, like, you do have to do the thing that you are training for. So, think about that as well for, anybody listening. Like when you're training for a thing, whether it's like, if there's going to be like vertical climbing involved, then like get to a rock climbing gym and you got to do that. If it's going to be mostly walking on hills, then like hills are going to be your thing. So, training specifically for the thing you're doing is really, really important, especially in like a 4-week time frame that you mentioned, because that's when you really got to kind of dial it in, on that specificity.
The, the, the last topic I want to talk about is how to handle the trip itself. Like everything gets thrown off. For some people, it might mean going from sea level to 5,000 feet, um, or hydration issues in humid areas or at altitude, fatigue. Like there's nothing like the energy someone has on the first day of a trip.
Mm-hmm.
And then on like, you take like a gazillion photos, and then on day 4 you've got like 20 photos because you're exhausted. I had a day once where I tried to show somebody that I had no problem carrying like 40 pounds around all day because I was like physically prepared for it. But then the next day I was tired and didn't want to do it. Um, it and then there's the fact that you lose control of like your diet. And so, especially if you're going to a lodge or you're, you know, being served your food from somebody else, or you're in a really rural area where there's not a lot of um, healthier food options. What, like, I don't know why I weighed 6 pounds more when I got back from Maryland, and now I don't weigh 6 pounds more anymore. Why I couldn't stay hydrated. These are the things that seem to affect all of us. What should photographers be doing while on the trip when it comes to taking care of themselves and maintaining some level of stamina?
Right, I got you. So, yeah, go like, so one thing, I'll kind of touch on. So I'll tell you what you should do in kind of that sort of like, oh shit, I'm already behind the 8 ball kind of thing, and like I'm on this trip, and here, this is, I just got to deal with it. But kind of goes back to what I said earlier about kind of keeping, like, basically understanding that these trips, whether it's like a vacation to see family, or if it's like a really intense kind of expedition for photography or skiing, backcountry, whatever, that all these activities are going to be like a negative on your body. This is the performance. Like this is literally the show that you've been training for. And you got to just kind of take that as it is and understand that like that is going to take you from like an 8 to a 5. But basically the point is that you are in this, training zone where you are at like an 8, 9, 10, whatever normally, understanding that these trips are going to knock you back down to like a 5, but then you just come home, you get back in your routine, you build yourself back up to that 8, 9, 10, whatever. But, again, like what you were saying, like maybe you show up to the trip like a 5 and it's going to knock you down to like a 1 or a 2. And that's just sort of, what I'll talk about in a second. But again, I can't emphasize enough that just the best thing to do is to be trained. Like if you are, typically strong, in a good state of endurance, eating right, all those things. When you do go on these trips, it's just not going to be that big of a deal because your body's already in this great state, and it'll just kind of take you back to, a couple steps back, but it's not going to knock you like completely on your ass. But if you do find yourself on a trip where you're, behind the 8 ball a little bit, maybe you didn't kind of get in the prep that you needed to, um, it's not necessarily the time to train. Obviously, like if you're on this trip, it's not like, oh, I need to like wake up and do a big workout and that's going to like help me today. It's not. It's actually just obviously just because that's just more energy output. But, controlling your sleep, controlling your hydration, are just kind of two easy things that you can do that can make the biggest difference. Sleep and hydration honestly have the biggest impacts on performance, whether you're trained or not. So, making sure you just control what you can control. But if you can get those 8 hours in, then that's going to literally make the biggest difference possible for your recovery. It's not like ice baths. It's not like you have to have an, electrolyte packet every single day. Like the biggest needle mover by far is sleep. And second to that is going to be hydration. In any athlete, again, good shape or bad shape, basically when performance starts to decrease for anybody, the biggest factor in that is your hydration. So, keeping that bottle with you and, crushing it, drinking like, about an ounce of water per body weight is awesome. If you can get anywhere close to that, that's going to be, plenty. I think, about half an ounce of water per body weight is good for basically our day to day. That's kind of just like a general recommendation. But if you can get, if we're talking about a trip where you're, breathing hard all day, hiking all day, then the hydration's got to step up too. So water and sleep, um, really the two best things you can do. If you do kind of catch yourself behind, and that's if you're in good shape or not, like no matter what, like those are going to be huge needle movers for those aspects. And yeah, again, like on these trips, you can't necessarily expect the protein quality to be there. It's probably you're eating a lot of bars and pre-packed stuff. Um, but eating as many like whole foods as you can. I'm kind of like bouncing between like family trips and like, hardcore expeditions when you're just like packing food. But if you can bring protein powder, something that's awesome. But again, if you're packing food for days and days, that extra weight's not really going to be what you need. So, again, expecting you might lose a little bit of muscle mass on these trips, especially if it's over the course of like a total week. That can actually reduce muscle mass after like 6 days or so of not training and not kind of getting adequate protein levels. But, if you're within that 6 day time frame, then, you can pretty much bank that you're fine. And, you're not necessarily taking steps backwards. So yeah, sleep hydration, always going to be some of the biggest factors in recovery and something that I think everybody can control a bit better than, other factors, stress, whatever. But yeah, I would probably land on those two being the bigger options there.
If someone is packing, snacks for the day, do you have recommendations there?
Yeah, definitely, putting in any kind of protein that you can. I mean, beef jerky and like biltong are awesome. If you haven't had biltong, I'd recommend it to anybody out there. It's like the South African version of beef jerky, but basically it's air dried instead of cured. So they don't use sugar when mixing it or not when curing the meat. So it's sugar free. So it's awesome. But anyway, getting getting as much protein in as you can with like dried foods like that is great. But um, for long distance hikes and things like that, fats are going to be a really good energy source. Fats tend to be what your body uses a little bit more at kind of lower intensities. So, AKA like walking and hiking. Whereas like sprinting and weightlifting, you're going to rely on your carbs a little bit more. So, again, thinking about these kind of longer endurance activities, fats are going to be a primary energy source. So therefore, eating fats is going to be a good way to kind of sustain that fuel. So nuts are awesome. Nuts are really high calorie and don't weigh very much. Bag of almonds, bag of cashews, whatever, trail mix um, are fantastic. I think trail mix became a snack kind of recently-ish, or not, I mean, over the past like 30 years in America, but they're really, I would not snack on trail mix. It's like very high calorie for a reason. It's full of sugar and fat to basically keep your blood sugar up while you're literally on a trail. So it's not like the best thing to just kind of snack on. It's just really high calorie. But on that note, it is perfect for hiking because it doesn't weigh a lot and you can get a lot of calories in a low amount of space and a low amount of weight. So those are really like your factors there. With that, bars are fine. If you can pre-make any sort of oat bar on your own, oats are going to be a really good source too. Oats are really, really lightweight, and also really high in calories too. So those are going to be your factors there. But honestly, yeah, I'd say trail mix. Sounds cliche, but it is the number one trail food. There's even a little bit of protein in those nuts. Don't listen to anyone who says nuts are a good source of protein. They are not. They are a great source of calories, and that's it. But yeah. Anyway, that's just sort of my little rant there. Anyone who says peanut butter is a good protein source needs to be removed from the conversation. But yeah. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the subject.
That's phenomenal. And that gets, I mean, this gets us from before the trip to in the trip, and then, after the trip. Do you have any recommendations for what people should do as they're getting back home, likely after, being on a plane or traveling distances? How do you recommend people get back to a speed that they're more pleased with?
Yeah, kind of what I said earlier. I mean, bodies in motion stay in motion, but if you're really feeling sore after a trip, even after sitting on a plane, you're not really going to cure that with more sitting. Like more resting is not really the answer. Light exercise is always the answer. Like basically, like motion is lotion. If your joints are stiff, ankles, whatever, ankles, knees, low back, like go to the gym and move those things. And I guarantee you're going to feel 100 times better after that than you would just by, watching TV or something and thinking, oh, I need rest. Going to the gym and doing, maybe let's say, you usually go in there and you do whatever, 100-pound dumbbells, go in there and do a 50, just do like cut your weight, your intensity by, half, maybe like a third, whatever feels good that day, but go in there and do something. If you're stiff, move those stiff body parts. That again, that's what your body needs. You really don't need full rest ever unless something is like broken or torn. Even if something is just pulled or strained, light exercise is going to be the way to heal it faster. So yeah, abs basically just get your butt to the gym, just drag yourself there, make it happen. And again, just don't try to go in there and think like, yeah, I'm going to PR on every single exercise today. Take it 50%, start there, and then see how you feel, and if 50 feels good, maybe up it to 60, 70, just get a little sweat going, move those joints a little bit. But ultimately, that's going to be what that's going to be the fastest thing to get you kind of physically recovered, besides the stuff I said earlier about sleep, hydration, like all that stuff. Those are always constants. But yeah, after you're beat up after a trip, go in the gym and move those things. Yeah, I actually visiting you not too long ago, last June. Your air mattress gave my low back quite the rude awakening. And I've genuinely woke up and was like, wow, my back's killing me. And we went to the gym and I did like 4 sets of 10 deadlifts with some side bends and some hip exercises. And we went on a hike and then my back felt awesome. So again, this is not medical advice now. Slight disclaimer, like obviously make sure I'm not saying deadlifts are always the cure for back pain, but at the time for me, that's what did it. So obviously consult with your medical professional before any sort of fitness program is done ever. But generally speaking, again, motion is lotion, movement's the cure. So if your back hurts, go move your back, do some RDLs, do some glute bridges, whatever your back can tolerate is going to be what kind of gets you going in the right direction. Full rest is almost never what you need.
I will say that sounds at times like it's impossible, but you mentioning that story reminded me of a time when your dad, Gabe and I have different last names because we had different dads, but um, he came out to visit, and I really wanted to float him down a river in the drift boat. But I was like, man, like something's wrong with my back. I can't do it. There's no way I'm going to be able to row all day. And I just told myself, okay, if I can't get the boat from like the side of the house to the front of the house, the trailer, then I can't do this. And over the course of like pushing heavy weight around to get the drift boat trailer to the front of the house, I felt great.
Yeah.
So like I felt like I like couldn't do anything for like 3 days, and then I did something physically demanding and was like, "Oh, everything's better now." So I don't know what. It's worth a
Yeah.
shot sometimes with all those
Yeah,
disclaimers and
totally.
everything.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and yeah, your brain understands consistency. So if you kind of basically like, force yourself to do something, your brain goes, "Oh, this thing is something that I need to do all the time, then okay, let's make it happen." And it figures it out. So yeah, man, it does. And that first session after a trip is always like the worst. Like that's, no, that's like the worst gym session ever. Like it just doesn't feel good. And, you don't feel like you're going to go in there and dominate. It's just kind of like you're getting your butt kicked, but you just gotta force that one in. You got to make it happen. Um, yeah, like I said earlier, 365 average is way better than 75 hard. You just got to understand like this isn't the session where I'm gonna like look like the Hulk necessarily, but you got to go in there and get it done, and that's what's gonna ultimately get you back into that super performance state, which is where you're accustomed to being. So yeah, you just got to take that first crappy lift and make it happen. First crappy walk, whatever it is, but again, rest is almost never the answer. You got to get back in there again, assuming sleep is good, then yeah, get your butt in the gym, go for a jog, whatever it is, but sweat a little bit, feel those muscles move, and yeah, all things will come into fruition. Yeah, a lot of times, pain kind of exists in our brain just as like a defense mechanism. It's not that something's necessarily wrong with our joints. Your brain's just kind of saying like, whoa, we did a little too much in this spot, so I'm just making sure that you're aware of this, that you feel this. But your job then as a to combat those uh, pain sensations from your brain is to move those things and be like, oh, actually this is okay. Your brain feels that too, it relaxes, and then it's like basically lets the guard down of whatever area we're talking about. And that's like 99% of rehab right there. Once the physiological aspects of something torn or broken is like mended, it's about kind of desensitizing pain and like the lack of motion. So again, motion is lotion, movement is medicine, whatever like little phrase you want to use, but movement is 99% of the time going to be what cures anything, physically. So keep that in mind, when you're sore, when you're beat up from a trip, go in the gym, move those things, do some squats, do some lunges, get your knees, ankles moving. Again, lightweight, but just get it done. And I promise you'll be feeling way better the next day than if you just did nothing at all.
Yeah, if you leave your fancy European SUV in the garage for a few months, it's not going to work.
That is right. That is right.
That's an exaggeration, but I think it's a good comparison. Unfortunately, my plans for the day changed because I thought I'm just gonna wait 3 days and get that really good lift in. So I'm gonna head to the gym and get that first post trip disappointing workout in, and maybe by Tuesday I'll be able to do a little bit better. I'm gonna try to stick with consistency. Thank you for everything you've shared. For those who want to possibly learn more or learn more about you, or get connected or whatever, what are the best ways to reach you in the digital space?
Yeah, I've got a Instagram I post on like once every 3 months, but I'm there. But I do check it, so you can message me anytime. No, and I do have the old link in bio where you can book a call, sign up and train with me anytime, any place in the world. I do online training as well as in person But yeah, you can check me out on Instagram at coach_G free. That's G as in Gabe, free as in the word. Coach_G free. Yeah, that's your boy. And yeah, I promise I'll be posting more though. I will become an active influencer one of these days because I don't know, man. I tell you, you know, one thing I can say, even about I work with, some of the most elite, like mountain athletes in the world, like truly. And it's, I'm really honored and privileged to do that. But it's funny, I've learned that, kind of just, living in a mountain town now versus being in East Coast and like a real, team sports heavy environment, football, basketball, lacrosse, kind of the, golf, whatever. Like there's really with mountain sports, there's not a great foundation of training, just like inherently in anything. It's like you're not really getting it in school or like, PE, whatever. So, so many athletes that I work with now are like incredibly impressive at their sport and at performance, but in the gym they have like an absolute like 1 out of 10 level. Like it's just so funny. So but to that point, it kind of leads to a lot of these overuse injuries and things like that, especially when they get older, when they get into their 20s, their 30s. They start to break down a little bit because they haven't had like a good foundation of strength conditioning. So, if that sounds like you, think about getting in the gym. It does not hurt to be good at the basics. Again, these people can, they can jump on a 40-inch box jump, no problem. Like they're powerful, they're explosive, but having that really good structure that you can build in the gym, just foundational strength is going to be the best thing for you long term for that injury prevention. If you get in a big crash, from everything from like an avalanche to, falling off your bike, like you're just going to be more resilient to those injuries, especially as you get older. So anybody out there, whether, from the most elite to the most novice athlete, you just got to get in the gym and do something, squats, push-ups, pull-ups, rows, deadlifts. There, every single person in the world should be doing those from age whatever, I don't know, 3 to 93. Everybody's in bounds for that stuff. Whatever level you're at, do it.
That sounds great. And while you were saying that, I looked down at my foot because I was, or yeah, below the desk because I was like, "What's that thing on the floor?" It was a chocolate chip, and so I picked up the chocolate chip. I didn't eat it, but on that note, that's a sign I think to just get out there and get active,
Yes.
change some habits.
Yep.
Well,
Yep. Yep.
thanks for coming on. This was great, and yeah, follow Gabe on social media and see what some of what he's doing. He also offers some advice and stuff like that sometimes, and hopefully we'll have you on again. Thanks, Gabe.
Yeah, well, it was a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. And yeah, follow me on the things. DM me anytime. Happy to help out. And yeah, I'm all about I don't know, I think movements for everybody, like I just mentioned. So any age, any level, everybody's got the right to just have a high performance body. And, whatever that means for you, whatever your activity is, you should be training, you should be strong. Yeah, and it's gonna resonate to a million things other than your activity. It's gonna be great for your mental health, stress, sleep, your relationships, you name it. So there's literally no downsides. Go to the gym, go for a hike, do something.
Doing it right now. Thanks so much.
Boom.